Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinsey. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and my friend today is Alex, a fellow hacker and creator of the Wi-Fi Nugget. Alex, thank you for joining us today.
Of course, thank you for the welcome.
Yeah, so if everything maybe looks a little bit different, that's because we are coming to you live from essentially a 3D print mill in Los Angeles, where we are frantically preparing for an upcoming workshop that we're going to do. In fact, the first workshop we've done in a really long time, where we are going to be having people solder together Wi-Fi nuggets and then learn how to deploy Ducky scripts on them. So if you're interested, if you want to check it out, if you're in the Los Angeles area, then we are going to, if you want to switch over to my screen, be doing this workshop at Null Space Labs on Saturday, March 19th. So it'd be great to meet some people from the stream. And also, if you want to make a nugget, these are really fun and cool. So Alex, what exactly will we be doing?
We're going to be covering. We're going to be covering a few things. The workshop starts off with a soldering skills class, so we'll teach you how to assemble electronics. It's also very beginner friendly, so if you've never soldered something together, we'll basically walk you through assembling one of our Wi-Fi Nugget boards. So I have here a D1 Mini, but we're actually going to be assembling an S2 Nugget, which is comprised of a screen, some D-pad style buttons, RGB NeoPixel, and a Wi-Fi microcontroller. So that's the first part of the class where we teach you how to assemble electronics. And then towards the last half, we'll teach you about stuff like USB attacks, and also walk you through creating your own custom payloads that you can deploy on the Wi-Fi Nugget using software we've been working on called the Rubber Nugget.
Yeah, so the Rubber Nugget's really cool. It's like a USB rubber ducky, except that it's got buttons and a screen. So in 3 clicks or less, you can deploy any one of how many payloads?
Up to, I think, like 36.
Up to 36 different payloads. So I was at a doctor's office the other day and plugged my Rubber Nugget into the back of the computer, and I was 3 clicks away from sending everyone home for lunch. But I didn't do it. I was just amazed that there was open USB plugs everywhere and how easy it is to just kind of plug a device in. So if you're interested, we'd love to see any of you guys that are in Los Angeles. It's always fun to see everyone. So also, we did a video this week. So a lot of the questions we got, hello, Michael. A lot of the questions we got this week were about our video, can Wireshark spot hidden cameras for free? So this video has done really well. We're at 36,000 views in just, I think, 4 days. So everybody gets a hand in this. I think, Alex, you got to do the detection via Wireshark. Even our friend Killian got in there and got to give some expert opinion about why Wireshark might be a good idea for spotting hidden cameras. So if you saw this video, if you have some question about it, maybe it's about detecting a certain type of camera. We also did a really awesome video way back on Nullbyte about intercepting footage from cameras. So if you want to know how that was possible or how we did that, feel free to ask in the chat because this episode really took off. So there were 150 comments and most of them were not mean. So that is a big change because sometimes we just get, where is Darren Kitchen? And of course, we also want to know where Darren Kitchen is most days. But I mean, we did make a video for you to watch. So that would be nice to acknowledge too.
Hey, Darren also made an appearance, I think, the other week too.
Yes, he did. So our Darren was our first guest on the Hack 5 version of the Q&A show. So big shout out to Darren Kitchen for making the time to come in and tell us all about the new updates with all the new Hack 5 gear that's coming out and also answer some questions from his fans. So yeah, very, very cool. So I also want to shout out something that happened to me on Twitter. So this got 2,543 likes and 26 quote tweets and 329 retweets. Damn. So I received a text message the other day that was just we detected a login from your wallet from a new device. Please visit this weird URL shortener to restore your wallet. Couple things here. 1, I'm not an idiot. 2, I don't have any cryptocurrency. It's not real. So both of those things together made me know that, hey, this is a scam. So then I proceeded, and if you guys don't know, you can take any suspicious link like this and drop it into VirusTotal, and VirusTotal will tell you all about where that link goes. So I saw this was a chain that went to this, it went here, and then it went to this weird website, and then it eventually dropped me at google.com. So when I went back and I decided to manually explore, I found that this is what it runs you to if you go in a browser. So it basically will check the user agent of whatever is requesting the page. And if you are one of the desired targets, it will serve you up this Wallet Connect website, which is supposed to allow you to connect all these different wallets to the scammer's infrastructure. So of course the scammer has a database, and this is like a place where all the data, the different people that get scammed by the stupid text message can submit their data, and they can go through and try to log in and steal all your stuff. Okay, so I knew this, and I went ahead and I clicked on Ethereum, and I submitted a fake wallet, but I did that in OWASP Zap. So OWASP Zap is really cool because it lets you proxy requests. So it basically lets you intercept something before it goes out. And I was able to intercept this great request where I saw that there was a request going to this PHP handler process, very suspicious name, that had the wallet type and then whatever I put in here. So I went ahead and put the entire B-movie script, and I crammed it in there as the content, and then I just started sending this thousands and thousands of times. Now, this is really easy in OWASP Zap because you're able to spoof different things. You're able to change different variables as you send. So what I decided to do was first, I just sent the B movie over and over and over and over. And for the user agent here, I just substituted out a new line from the B movie script every time I sent the request. So it'd be really hard to just filter for one user agent. Instead, every single line of the movie was a new fake user agent as these were being sent out. So people thought this was really funny because like everybody hates scammers, and like the B movie is also like a very traditional thing to send to someone once you figure out they're scamming you. So the fact that this guy's database was jammed full of basically spam of the B movie made a lot of people happy. But I followed that up with something more. So I decided like, okay, if this guy decides though to just write a simple regex, which Alex, what is a regex?
It's short for regular expression. So if you ever used something like grep in Linux to like look for a certain type of string or something like that, and you want to match like different strings that have certain characteristics, you can use a regex to basically filter out for certain similarities or characters or stuff.
Right. So as soon as this guy sees what happened, he's gonna be like, well, that's annoying. But he can also write a very simple search filter, which will use a regex in order to identify the real things from the fake things. So one thing that's interesting, though, is these can work both ways. So a regex can be used to also generate things that follow a certain set of rules. So OWASP Zap has a module that lets you use a regex to just generate like a pattern of numbers. And in this case, I used a regex to make fake cryptocurrency wallet addresses that look real. So none of them are real. But what I did was I started sending requests over and over and over for different wallet types with fake Bitcoin wallet or other wallet types associated with it. So this is just designed to fill up their database with spam that looks totally real and make it a little bit harder for the attacker to go through and figure out who legitimately got scammed and submitted their real information, and me just spamming them with as many real looking requests as possible. So at first, I wanted to send them the B movie and I wanted them to know they've been caught. But then when I thought about it, I really wanted to just fill up their database full of real looking data and make it impossible for them to sort out the real victims from my spam campaign against the spammers. So that was what I did over the weekend, and people seem to think that was really funny. So if you have any questions about how I did that, please feel free to ask because I did it and it was really fun.
I saw they were also accepting other wallet types, but I think the website eventually went down. It'd be really funny if you just like spammed all the other different types of wallets they had.
Yeah, so this actually had an interesting feature where it would check your user agent before it would let you go forward. And if you were not the correct user agent, or if they didn't want you going to the website, it would just redirect you to google.com. It would just drop you back there. So there are some interesting filtering mechanisms in the way that this phishing page was deployed, because it really allowed the attacker to sample like whoever was going in there first and select for a certain type of people according to a certain like Google API campaign or like a Google AdWords campaign. It was kind of sophisticated and interesting to see the way that people who are going after high level targets, that being like, Bitcoin wallet addresses and such, how they get away with this and what their level of sophistication is. Because it was difficult to analyze this. I had to use OWASP Zap and proxy in a real browser to get a convincing enough user agent that the scam website let me in and showed me the fake page with all the different places to put my information. So really scary and creepy, because a lot of people might not know the difference between this and a legitimate text from a 2FA they set up for maybe one of their Bitcoin wallets.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to go over to the chat, and I just want to give a big shout out to everybody in the chat today, especially Zam, for organizing things. And I'm sorry if the connection is such that I'm stuttering. Also, the sound of 3D printers in the background might also be adding to our audio issues a little bit. But
think we had a question on a wireshark. If you want to take it,
Yeah, let's go.
maybe we can take it.
Cool.
Someone asked if we had to be on the same Wi-Fi network in order to detect the cameras.
Okay.
Which the answer is no, but you can.
Yeah.
elaborate.
So there's a number of different ways that you can detect a hidden camera with Wireshark, and we only covered a couple in this video. Now, the easiest way is if you have access to the network, you can look for suspicious traffic, going to a DNS server that has something to do with camera services or whatever, and you can use that context information, including like the network name of the device, the manufacturer of the device, which you can see from the MAC address, in order to very quickly identify things that, for example, are broadcasting a lot of data and are on constantly, or maybe turn on when you're in the room, but are not on when you're not. Like that might be an indication of a camera that is using some sort of like motion detection. So these are ways that you can, if you have access to the network, spot a camera. And of course, that works perfectly well. In fact, we even go so far as to show how you can intercept requests to and from this device that might be someone viewing the camera in real time, and you can actually see what the camera is seeing, which is really cool. But if you do not know the Wi-Fi password, let's say the scenario is like you're at an Airbnb and there's a secure network and a guest network, and there's some weird device on the secure network that seems to maybe be a camera. It's still totally possible to do this, because what you would do is look for MAC addresses that are broadcasting that use like a camera's manufacturer ID. So the first half of a MAC address is set by whatever manufacturer is the person responsible for the wireless card. So if we see like a Sony camera, MAC address, that would be an indication that this might be a device, a media device worth checking out. So as soon as we identify a device of interest, we can then create a Wireshark filter to allow us to only see traffic from that device. And from that, we can create a graph that shows us information about how strong the signal is, and simply walk around until the signal strength gets really, really strong. So it is totally possible to find a hidden camera without necessarily needing access to the Wi-Fi network that the camera is connected to. You can spot them regardless, and you can do that just by looking through MAC addresses and looking for suspicious MAC addresses that belong to known camera manufacturers. Just a really simple and easy way to do that.
Yeah, the thing with most like hidden cameras, there isn't really a way to like run a wire to them, like Ethernet or something like that. So I'm willing to presume that most hidden cameras that you'd be looking for will be emitting a wireless signal, and that whatever like perverts at the other end of the camera watching the live feed, it's probably doing it over Wi-Fi. So you'll probably have a good shot with Wireshark.
Whoa, some people
Someone
also
else?
have some very, very strenuous opinions. There's this guy wrote an essay. I think this person put more energy into responding to our episode than we put into making it. Okay, that's not a question, so I'm gonna get to that later. But
Nice.
did you have another one?
Someone asked if you still have a Raspberry Pi in the shower.
How do you remember that? Yeah, so I watched Ghost in the Shell one time, and there's a scene where she's like interfacing with the computer virtually, like while in the shower. And I was like, wow, that's so productive. Like I should create that. So I went ahead and got like a waterproof keyboard and a Raspberry Pi, and then a screen pressed up against the glass of the shower. And it was just like, cool, now I can do hacking stuff in the shower. You're just not in the mood in the shower for some reason. I don't know why. Like I just like, it's not a time where I feel like it's necessary for me to check my email. And it's also not a time where like I'm incredibly productive. And also the silicone, like weird floppy keyboard is weird to use and not very accurate. So I have not used the shower computer as much as I thought, but thank you so much for remembering it. It was a really big idea, and I was very bullish on the shower computer for a long time. My conclusion is that like I'm just not in the mood in the shower. It's just don't want to hack in the shower. It's weird to hack while fully nude and completely wet, like it feels strange. So it's also probably the worst computer to have infiltrated. If you get like some sort of vulnerability in your shower computer, like things could go south very quickly.
Sure beats a toilet cam.
Yes, but it does sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Someone asks, Wireshark will find Wi-Fi connected devices. How about devices that aren't giving off a Wi-Fi signal? How do you find that?
Yeah, so that would be like, for example, there was a little plug, like a USB plug that goes on the wall that has a camera in it, and it records to an SD card. Is there any way that you would be able to like find that with Wireshark?
I don't think with Wireshark.
No.
If there are like wired like Ethernet devices, I think at best you could recognize that there's like something suspicious connected to the network. Considering that you are connected to the same network, you could do something like a port scan, and look for certain devices, again, by manufacturer. Like if you do an ARP scan, I think you can get the, no, you can't get the MAC address, can you? That's on a different layer.
No, you can. With an ARP,
Oh,
you
okay.
need the MAC address.
Yeah, you can get the MAC address, go through the same process of determining if it's from a suspicious manufacturer, and also determining if it has like certain ports open that are communicating something like a video feed or hosting a web server that's also feeding it to a web interface or something like that.
All right.
But otherwise, if it's just recording to SD card, probably
yeah.
not.
Yeah, and a lot of them do just record to SD card. So if it's just recording to SD card, then that would be significantly harder to find. But then they got to sneak in twice. So then it would be somebody who has continuous access to the space instead of just momentary access or the one-time access. So obviously, it's a lot harder to check in on a camera or watch it in real time if it's not, accessible, if it's just sitting there recording to SD card. But, it is a possibility. So Wireshark would be a pretty lousy option, in my opinion, to be able to find a camera that's not broadcasting, because it really does rely on some sort of communication in order to find it. Now, some people were also commenting about this thing we were testing, that like K19 spy detector. And they were saying that they could not find anything with this lens thing. And legitimately, you really have to be at the perfect angle in order for it to reflect back. Like if you know where a camera might be to begin with, then it makes it easier for you to like inspect objects or something like pretty thoroughly. But the field of view is incredibly narrow. And frankly, like a lot of stuff that is not a lens will reflect in a similar way. So we found that like I was able to put like an eye bolt like inside one of the things Michael was looking around in the video for, and he thought it was a camera lens. I was able to put like tape around it, and he like wasn't totally sure, but like it might have been a camera lens because it still created a reflection. Like it was really easy to be deceitful and have a lot of false positives with the kind of reflection technique we were talking about. So it's not foolproof at all. There's definitely problems with it. And then someone else was saying that some cameras are now being set up to use anti-glare or non-reflective lenses, and it makes it a lot harder to find those reflections. And absolutely, that's kind of the Achilles heel of a lot of these hidden cameras, is that the lenses are really cheap pieces of glass that reflect a lot of light back at the right angle, and you're able to use that to pinpoint them.
Someone asks, what kind of signal strength do you need for Wireshark to be effective using, say, a Yagi antenna for range? In our case, I was able to just use, you can select between like two different graph types. You can just have it like linear or logarithmic. So that like really accentuates once like the Wi-Fi signal starts hitting like those like higher levels of received signal strength. So you can really see once you're like getting closer to it or not. Of course, having a directional antenna would help you pinpoint it a little bit better. But for someone who doesn't have like an external USB dongle, just using the built-in Wi-Fi card on your laptop if it supports it, and that graph mode really helped.
Yeah, so some person also says, wouldn't it be better to use a UPS directional antenna? I could use Kismet to do the same thing and log everything in a database with the GPS receiver. Kismet would totally work for this. So what is Kismet?
It's a tool that can be used for war driving. You can also use it for Wi-Fi reconnaissance of all sorts.
Yeah, and it goes into a lot of detail, right? Like you can see like the device history of something. You can see whether a device is putting out beacon or like probe requests, like trying to find a network it's connected to before, so it can let you know where a device has been in the past. It's really useful. And we got in not trouble, but we got like very mildly yelled at by the Kismet guy last time because we did a video on using Kismet to do something, but we used like the oldest version of it that's like not like supported.
Was
and,
that my fault?
Yeah, it was your fault. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
So we got like very lightly yelled at by the Kismet guy. So we're like, we're gonna do Wireshark on this one. Because like now we need to brush up on the most recent version of Kismet, so we don't embarrass ourselves before we do it again. So
to be honest, I missed the old one because the old Kismet was command line based. So if you have something that doesn't have like a full GUI interface, or you want to run it on like a headless Raspberry Pi, you could do that. But now with the web interface, you kind of can't. Yeah, which sucks.
Yeah. So the benefit of a directional antenna is obviously you can sweep. So when you're just doing Wireshark on your laptop, like we were showing, you got to walk around and play hot and cold in order to try to find out where something is. With a directional antenna, you can just sweep back and forth and get a spike in one direction, move closer, get a spike in one direction. And within like 3 movements, you can find out exactly where it is with a high degree of precision. And it also kind of allows you to sweep up and down and identify like where on like a vertical axis something is as well, which just holding your laptop up and down like might not do as good of a job. So it allows you to be much more precise, and it allows you to use like kind of a flashlight instead of like a lantern in order to go looking for something, which is very, very useful, because it's as soon as you have the flashlight like pointed in the right direction, you know exactly where you're supposed to be headed in order to get closer to it. It is not so clear when you're just using Wireshark. And that's why we had to use the signal graph. We really needed to walk around and watch the signal go up and down and up and down in order to find out exactly where the device was. All right, got another question?
Yeah. Someone asks, do I need a special Wi-Fi network card to do this?
Oh.
If you are using an external one, or rather this also would apply to an internal Wi-Fi card, you would need one that's capable of monitor mode. So that basically allows you to sniff for Wi-Fi traffic. Some laptops do have cards that support monitor mode. Most don't. Mine happens to, which is really useful, and I was able to do that. If not, you'll probably be looking at something like a Panda wireless dongle, more on the budget side. Like the PAU09 module has dual band Wi-Fi, or something cheaper might be like the 05, which is just 2.4. Otherwise, something like Alpha Wireless or some other known brand that's compatible with Linux.
Okay. Some other people missed the old Kismet too. I'm just checking in on the chat, and I just have to say, like, yeah, the old Kismet was easy to use in a lot of ways. Okay, so this is actually a great question. Oh, did you have one?
After you.
Okay. So instead of overcomplicating things with Wireshark, can't you just run a simple Wi-Fi scanner to see if there's an unknown connected device on that network? And then somebody else replies, that kind of only works if you're connected to the network. I think this is based off the frequency strength, well, the signal strength, yes. Except I'm not sure. Didn't really show much of the setup, which is my only gripe about the video. Yeah, so we had to make a decision about making this a tutorial or making it a comparison video. So we kind of had to do a speed run through. But if you listen through what Alex said, he was creating a filter that just filters for that one device and then monitoring the signal strength on a graph, which is pretty straightforward. So then we're just watching the signal strength either go up or go down. So the question here is, like, if you have access to the guest Wi-Fi network, can you do a scan and can you identify a suspicious device on that network? Okay, so yes, but also no. So if the network is segmented properly, meaning they set it up the correct way so that the guest network is separated from the network that has all the IoT devices and their printer and whatever else, then no, you wouldn't be able to see that, because it would technically be on a separate VLAN than the one that has all the stuff on it. So that's, again, if they set it up correctly. Now, I'm going to say 75% of the time it is not set up correctly, and you can see all of the devices on the network. And then, yes, you would be able to see suspicious devices. You'd be able to see what manufacturer they are, and you'd also be able to identify if they have a suspicious network name, like Toilet Can, or something like that. So a tool like Thing Network Scanner, Thing is free. It has a great graphic user interface. Like, I've been using it for years, and I really, really like it. So I would say Thing Network Scanner would be a really great way, if you have access to the Wi-Fi network, to just take a look at it and see if there's anything weird on it. But just know, if the person is tech savvy and they are properly segmenting their network, or they even just clicked the box that says to do so, which is recommended and honestly should be the default state, then no, you will not see the other devices on the network that are on a separate VLAN, because they are hidden from you. And that's the intent of setting things up that way. Same way where, like, if you go to like a Starbucks or like something like that, like that has properly segmented networks, when you join the network, you're assigned your own virtual LAN, your own VLAN, and you are alone in that desert. You can communicate with the router and you can communicate with yourself, but there's no reason for you to be communicating with other people's devices. What if somebody left a port open while they were doing production stuff, and suddenly some other person on the same Wi-Fi network starts poking around? Like, they don't want to do that. So they literally will not forward packets between these isolated little VLANs. And that's a way that someone can get away with hiding like some weird sneaky stuff on a network that you have access to, that you can't see from your little window into it, from whatever Wi-Fi network that you're a part of. So that's a really good question. And I had to explain the nuance in that, because VLANs are the proper way of segmenting networks. And all the time I see businesses that do not do this. So everything is crammed on the same network. And that's how you get, printers renamed to things that they shouldn't be, and inappropriate music being blasted at coffee shops, which causes, people to get yelled at. Isn't that right, Alex?
That seems like a very specific example, but yeah.
Weird that I would bring that up. But yeah, so, there are all sorts of issues when you don't properly segment your network, and then somebody who you don't want gets access to it. So there's lots of popular ways to separate different devices and make it so they can't see each other. And that is absolutely a way that a scan on a device like, or an application like Thing would miss a hidden camera. Now, would Wireshark catch it? Yes, it would, because Wireshark doesn't care about networking. It will still pick up any packets being transmitted in the general area. So Wireshark is just a sniffer that sniffs everything, whereas Fing is a scanner that only can scan the specific network that you're connected to, and then can only see what that network allows it to see. So kind of a big difference there, and definitely worth explaining. Also, excellent question. And the commenter chasing midnight is also correct. And also, if that is a reference to the midnight, then they're great. Okay.
Someone asks, do you start the capture first, then open IO graph, or vice versa? Does it matter the order? Yeah, so first you put your card into monitor mode. That's the first step. Then you open up Wireshark, select the name of your wireless device. Then the capture starts flowing in, and then you open up the IO graph so you can visualize the data. Someone asks, what type of 3D printers are running in the background? We have an Ender 3 Pro and also a V2. Someone asks, what are we printing?
Boy, do I have a surprise for you.
He's gone.
A heck ton of nuggets.
Yeah. So yes. All right, that's very
I was gonna pour it all out.
Yeah,
That would've been too
I'm
much.
so glad you did it. Yeah, so we have found ourselves in the position of needing to make lots and lots and lots of Wi-Fi Nugget cases very quickly. So we are now in possession of more 3D printers than my community college makerspace. And I think even Null Space Labs, I think we beat them out too. Currently we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 Ender Pro V2s, 2 Ender Pro V1s, and then 1 of the CR30 Rolly belts, like Creality belt printers, which are really cool because they can print forever on this belt. But they're also like, they print kind of ugly. So like they print on like a nylon bed, and it's like it's really rough kind of when it's finished, and some of the parts aren't super precise. So we've turned it into a giant just D-pad printer. All it does is drop D-pads in a box on this big rolling thing. So it's been way more difficult to work with, but it was pretty cool. It was part of the Kickstarter campaign to make a really interesting and scalable printer that prints at a 45-degree angle. So that's one of the more interesting printers we have. We don't have it here with us in Los Angeles, but we do have a lot of the Creality Ender Pro.
Yeah, the V2s.
The V2s, yeah.
I think we're all Creality. All our printers are, right?
Yeah, well, because Prusa has like a 6-week
Oh my god, yeah.
or longer like wait period, and we needed these things now. So like some of the nicer printers are just like much harder to come by nowadays, and we found that these definitely meet our needs. So we have all these connected to Octoprint.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, when I was at C3, Gina, the creative Octoprint, I believe was in one of my classes where I was teaching Wi-Fi hacking on microcontrollers. So super cool that we're now using her project to make cases for a Wi-Fi hacking project with microcontrollers. But yeah, really, really cool to have access to all these via a web interface and just basically be printing all day. We're printing at a pretty astounding rate for only having invested about $600, $700 in all these printers. So they're cheap. You can get them for like $250. I highly recommend it. Lots of fun, and you can make a lot of really cool things.
Yeah, someone asks recommendation for a consumer printer. The Ender 3 V2s work really well out of the box. They're silent, they're great, pretty cheap.
It's the Raspberry Pi of printers. You know, like so many people have used this that like and messed it up, that when you have a problem, there's going to be 10 different videos on how to fix it. You know, it's the Kali Linux, the print, you know, it's just like perfect for beginners because so many people in the community have done crazy stuff with it and fixed it after breaking it, that it's really, you know, it's always one of 6 things. There's like 6 problems the thing has, and it's just cycling through determining which one it is that's really the challenge sometimes. So it's a very stable platform that has lots of community support. It's easy for beginners, and it's pretty scalable. But I will say some of the advances like the CR30 are really interesting if you have the time to sink into learning how to print them. I have not. It has been a lot more difficult than I thought it would be.
Is this a hint for a new drop? Oh, I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, I don't
Someone
know.
wants to know.
Yeah.
Well, most of them we are prepping for the upcoming workshop, but maybe you'll see some nuggets on the store in the future.
Yes.
Perhaps,
Yeah. So we are preparing for a large release of nuggets into the Hack 5 ecosystem. So stay tuned for that. Actually, we were trying to do it already, but Alex here is doing a bunch of programming, you guys. So you got to wait.
Nerd stuff.
Yeah, but it will be done very soon, and we're really looking forward to launching the S2 Nugget which is able to inject ducky scripts, and hopefully we'll also have a Wi-Fi interface.
Yeah, one of the things I ran into with the last version of the Rubber Nugget that I was working on, which was done in CircuitPython, which I also demonstrated for the PwnKit exploit, ran into some issues just with like memory when trying to run like the web interface on top of doing the normal stuff for like keystroke injection and hosting like an interface on the Nugget. So I'm redoing basically all of it from scratch in C.
Yeah, a complete rewrite of the entire Python Nugget. So that we do have a functional version of the Python Rubber Nugget, which we're going to be doing at our workshop. But there's a like C-based Nugget, which will have lower level access to some of the stuff we really want to make fancy. And like we'll kind of roll back some of the decisions that Adafruit made for CircuitPython so we can make our decision for our product. Because right now, like CircuitPython made some decisions that are making it a little difficult for us to do what we want to do using Python.
Right.
But it is a really cool language. It does work. It's just the web interface is a little slow, and switching between USB mode and no USB mode is real tricky and can freak people out because they think that they break the board. Okay, so one question is, so how do I set this up in Wireshark? Turn on some filters and wave my hands? Okay, I know we did a light touch on this, but honestly, we totally covered this on Nullbyte twice. And we'll do another one on Hack5 if you guys really want on tracking things down or fox hunting via signal string. We can totally do that. Although I will say that the process that this takes is open put your card into monitor mode, open Wireshark, look through, and Wireshark will automatically parse MAC addresses so that it has the manufacturer in the beginning. Look for suspicious ones, and then right mouse click on it and set a filter from one of the settings right there, which we had on screen. So you don't need, there's not very much hand waving per se. It's more just three clicks or so. But yes, point taken. We will absolutely go into more detail. There was just so much to cover in this episode that we couldn't really exhaustively go into it. No, we just use, what do you use on the ThinkPad right now? Just Ubuntu?
Just Ubuntu, yeah.
And then one final comment is you could also de-auth the camera. So that's true. If the camera was a Wi-Fi camera, then you can, as soon as you identify it, you could deauthenticate it, which would deny the pervert at the other end, as Alex called them, from being able to see the camera because it would no longer be connected to whatever data source it was connected to. Now, this could be a local data source where, the person's like in the other room watching, or it could be, streaming to a remote server where they're just connecting that server or watching a DVR of it later. So either way, you could disrupt the flow of data from the local source often to wherever it's being watched by continually deauthenticating it from the network. Just be sure that it is in fact a camera and not someone's like personal device, or they're going to get really mad at you. All right, got another question?
Yeah. What is a Wi-Fi Nugget? This is a great question.
What an excellent question. So, do you want me to go first?
I can start off and you can elaborate. Sure. Yeah, so the Wi-Fi Nugget is basically just a multi-tool that you can use for learning various types of hacking. We currently have two different splits for the Wi-Fi Nugget. One of them is the D1 Nugget. This one can be used for learning Wi-Fi security. So we have software like the Nugget Invader, which you can use for trying out Wi-Fi attacks, like Deauthentication and stuff like that. Or you can also use it to learn about network defense with the other piece of software we're working on. So you can spawn up things like a, what's it called? A NAT router. So you can practice like Wi-Fi hacking legally and like intercept traffic and stuff like that. That's one of the applications. And the other Wi-Fi Nugget that we were just talking about, which is the Rubber Nugget, can be used for more stuff like HID attacks, USB attacks, the typical keystroke injection stuff that you see like with other Hack5 products. So like one of the things that I'm currently working on implementing is ducky script functionality. So that way you can parse ducky script payloads that are already out there and run them directly from the Nugget through a simple interface.
All right, my turn. Give me the Nugget. All right, so the Wi-Fi Nugget is a hacking platform designed for beginners to learn programming and hacking projects. The project we are currently focusing on is the Rubber Nugget, which is a USB attack tool, which allows you to deploy up to 36 payloads in 3 clicks or less. And on top of that, it has a Wi-Fi interface to allow you to connect to it and write your own payloads on the fly. So the idea is you find an open USB port, but it's first like a weird flavor of Linux. Well, if you don't have a payload for it, you can still connect. You can go into maybe your phone's Wi-Fi, connect to the network, and then be able to write payloads in real time or deploy ones that you have stored. And of course, the ideal scenario is you see a computer like a Windows computer, you're able to set up some sort of payload that you rely on or know very well. And then within 3 clicks, you're able to deploy it and also get a cute little cat face on the screen as well to let you know you've succeeded. So we really like these cute little cat-shaped boards because it blends programming with designing hardware. And we even got our first sponsor, PCBWay, who has sponsored this design and also our show. So shout out to them for helping us with a bunch of logistical problems, because making hardware is difficult, and especially making educational hardware. It's really been a long process in designing this, but this is an Alex Lynn design, as you can see, because it's cat shaped, and it's really cool.
I too am cat shaped.
Yeah,
sure.
And it's just really cool that Alex is like 18 and designing his first hardware product, and that we've sold literally hundreds of them. So it's really cool the community has embraced it so much.
Yeah.
So if you want to make your own Wi-Fi Nugget, just another shout out, you can see on my screen. You can also check out Cyber Weapons Lab LA. That is the group that the meetup group we started in Los Angeles for anybody who's interested in hacking projects. We usually meet at Null Space Labs for these workshops every so often. We have done them a lot less since the pandemic, but we're trying to get them started again. So if you're interested, we also sometimes do online labs, or online workshops. So if you're not in Los Angeles and you still want to participate, you can always jump on the meetup group as well. And that's Cyber Weapons Lab LA. Join some of the other, I think we have 255 mostly local members. So it's always great to meet other people in the Los Angeles area. If you're in Southern California, then yeah, we would love to see you at the workshop or just around at one of the events at Null Space Labs, because it's a great spot. All right, next question.
Sure. I'm gonna take a question from one of our videos actually.
Yeah, let's do it.
We took this one already. Someone asked, Wireshark only works if you are connected to the network. No.
Oh, hold on. What is Burp Suite? Okay, this is a great question. So I have a love-hate relationship with Burp Suite. So Burp Suite is a tool for proxying web requests and then being able to do certain attacks based on what you see. So if you're going to a web application, it lets you poke around, discover how the API works, and do things like, break into a website or break a web application in lots of interesting ways. Now, Burp Suite is a paid product, and on the other end of the spectrum is OWASP Zap. Now, I've been using both, and for let's say I'm a security researcher, I make videos for all of you. I'm supposed to be the one who's introducing you guys to Burp Suite. So I have had licensing issues. I keep asking them, I'm trying to make a video on this. Can you please just let me keep using your product so I can show other people how to use it? And well, maybe. So on the other end of the spectrum, we have OWASP Zap, totally free, super powerful, but not very good documentation. So you have to be willing to sit down and really learn it, because while it's powerful, the answers aren't all there for you. And sometimes it's kind of scary to rely on a 7-year-old video for learning a very basic skill on something you're just is there an FAQ that I'm missing? Why can't I find this? So OWASP Zap is now my preferred way of doing this, because I have not been able to find anything you can do really in Burp Suite that you can't do in OWASP Zap. It's just the journey to get to figuring out how to do that is not as certain. So if you've got I think their product is $300, then Burp Suite, or if your employer will pay $300, then Burp Suite is great. Honestly, lots of people use it because the support and the documentation is really good. Not so much for me, because I'm just using it for free to make videos and they're not really set up for that, but that's another story. That's why you'll see me kind of leaning more towards OWASP Zap, because frankly, I feel they need the documentation. And it's such a great tool. And I was able to spam those unfortunate phishing people earlier with it as well, which I found very endearing and very cool. So yeah, I highly recommend OWASP Zap, but Burp Suite is a perfectly acceptable solution as well if you've got the money for it. But my favorite thing is really the Portswigger Academy, which Portswigger is the company behind Burp Suite, and their Burp Suite Academy is really excellent. It has lots of live web applications you can attack and learn on. So I will say the one thing that's nice is that they have a great educational program for teaching you about web application security, but you can also just use OWASP Zap on all of the challenges and it works exactly the same. Just saying. So yeah, I really, really like it. And again, no shade on Burp Suite at all. I think that for what they do, they're excellent. And I've actually enjoyed using it a lot. It feels like you're driving a nice car. But when you want to get into the thick of things, I think that OWASP Zap is really nice and frankly has a lot of features that are super useful for people that are doing this sort of pen testing.
Yeah, with better documentation, it'd probably be more useful, which I guess you're the one that's taking initiative on that. Someone asks about other CTFs besides Hack the Box. I know you really like the what's it called, Burp Suite Labs.
Yeah. Just as I just went over, those CTFs are CTFs. Those labs are super fun because they're real. They're stood up. I know that OWASP has the juice shop. I haven't tried it because it honestly turns me off that you have to self-host it. I want something that I can just be ready anywhere. I'm sure I will eventually come around to it, but like the fact that the deployment is a little bit more complicated than sign into your account and go to this web URL is a little bit annoying because like, yeah, I hear it's really great, but like the setup process is not as friendly for beginners at all. So there is definitely that.
Mark asks if you can buy a Wi-Fi Nugget without having to assemble it themselves. Yes, you can find that on our store at wifinugget.com, and we'll drop a link in the chat.
Yeah. So one question, what's the difference between D1 and the Wi-Fi Nugget? I'm still deciding which one to get. So we have two versions of the Wi-Fi Nugget, and it all comes down to the microcontroller, of which I'm holding one, that powers them. So we don't have an S2 on the table. That's so sad. So we have bought hundreds of these D1, and then you have to imagine it, it's purple, S2 microcontrollers. And one of these is kind of old, like a little bit older, but lots of community projects work on it. Lots of like Space Hoon, for example, projects work on it. And it's just a really solid, great microcontroller in a cool little form factor that makes it easy to integrate into other projects and makes it resistant against the chip shortage. So we've been getting away with making these, even though there's a huge component shortage, because all the components we need are integrated onto this module. Now, very recently, the S2 Mini, which again, I'm not really holding because it's somewhere. The S2 Mini is an updated version of this that's kind of like a replacement for the ESP32. So what it does...
Oh, yeah, I wish we had a closer up shot, but...
There we go.
It's the S2.
So it's purple. So the S2 Mini, which is the core of this Wi-Fi Nugget, has things like built-in USB, and it has all these additional like powers that the ESP8266 does not have. It's able to show up as a keyboard or a mouse or do all these other really cool things. It supports CircuitPython. So there's lots of cool things you can do with it that are just a little bit more difficult to do with the D1 Mini. But there's one really important difference. So the ESP32S2 just came out. And because of that, Espressif, the company that makes it, has had time to lock down the parts that a lot of people have been using for hacking because they don't want to get in trouble. So this device, while it's newer, is actually more locked down than the ESP8266. Kind of counterintuitive. And the reason,
Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah. Well, the reason for that is when it comes to Wi-Fi, the ESP8266 used to have a way of programming it that allowed you to write arbitrary packets, meaning you could do anything you want. You can send Deauthentication packets, you can send anything. And this has since been rolled back. But because the framework for programming it still exists, we will always be able to make ESP8266s send arbitrary packets. Now, again, it's not a very powerful chip. There's other trade-offs here, but we get to do things like deauthentication. And currently, that's just not possible on the ESP32S2. Why would this company want to make it super easy for their devices to be used to attack other devices? It's not a very solid business move. So they've gone out of their way to, in the actual firmware of this device, make it very, very difficult to do those sorts of attacks. So that's the trade-off you have to make. Do you want the newer, cooler chip that does USB stuff and has Wi-Fi, but can't attack other Wi-Fi devices? Or do you want the older chip that can attack Wi-Fi devices, but isn't as good at a lot of the other things you might want to do? It has, for example, fewer pins broken out. So if you wanted to add sensors or do other projects, you would have fewer options with the D1 Nugget, whereas the S2 Nugget would give you lots more breakout pins, lots more sensors, lots of other things you can do with it that you just can't do with the older version. So that's really the choice between the two. Personally, I'm a big fan of the S2 Nugget because it was my idea. Kind of feel like it's my child because I figured out that the new ESP32S2 was coming out in this form factor that's exactly the same pinout as the D1 Mini. So because they were pin compatible, we were able to just slap them on our existing design without making any changes at all. So we bought like 500 of them, which is like, I think, a quarter of the global supply at the time. So, we'll try to increase that stock over time. But it's been pretty crazy selecting which chip we want to use for this project because there's lots of them out there. But really, these two, the ESP8266 and the ESP32S2, in our opinions, are some of the best out there for hacking projects.
Yeah. Dang, I think we got a donation in the chat. Someone asks what the best VPN service is in 2022.
Ooh, so okay, so this is I don't know where that money goes, but thank you very much. We've never got a donation in the chat before, but we will answer you for sure because your money went somewhere, and now I feel like I owe you. So The problem with VPNs is consolidation. There's been lots of different VPN companies that started out good that had been bought up by one central company that has a really, really terrible reputation for privacy. This is a company that actively introduces like malware or adware at the very least that is incredibly deceptive and tries to trick customers into spending money that they absolutely do not need to spend. So this is a company that is not got a very high moral standard and will basically try to make money however they can. A lot of the major VPN providers like PIA and I think NordVPN have been scooped up kind of by this entity. And as a result, you should really look around to see who the ultimate owner of the VPN you're signing up for is. I myself have not done a great job of this, but since you put in $2, I'll tell you the VPN that I personally use is Mullvad. I like them for a variety of reasons. They're fast, the servers pop up where I need them to be. And on top of that, I think you can just send them an envelope full of cash if you want to, and they'll just set you up. And they're one of the very few providers I know that will do that. So I like Mullvad. I don't have any other good recommendations because most of the ones that I used to trust or that I've tried in the past have ended up being consolidated by this giant conglomerate. Now, am I sure that Mullvad hasn't been? No, because I haven't looked it up in a while. And now that you mentioned that, I'm going to take that $2 and go spend it finding out like whether or not Mullvad is actually owned by this giant conglomerate. But obviously, the centralization of VPNs is a giant concern for anybody who's using them for privacy. So I would say, really, it's important to find out who owns the actual entity that you're signing up with if you're going to be using a VPN. And of course, you want to set up a threat model that makes sense to you. Maybe it makes more sense to set up an AWS instance and make your own VPN and connect to that if you're really worried about what these providers are going to do. Of course, then you got Amazon doing the same thing potentially, but at the very least, you'll have more control and you'll know that it's not going to some commercial entity or directly to the Five Eyes intelligence agencies or something like that. Someone also says, you got me wanting to try OWASP Zap again. You should. The heads up display is super cool. There's lots of buried features that I didn't totally understand the first time I used it that were just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, if you haven't tried OWASP Zap for a while, you should check it out again. As a beginner, I found it intimidating the same way I felt Wireshark was intimidating, but now I love it the way that I love Wireshark. So
someone says we should combine both of the chips to hack all the things. I think there's a product that does that. It's like the Wi-Fi Marauder, except that uses the ESP32.
Yeah, so the big problem with the ESP32 is it doesn't do USB stuff.
Yeah.
So most products that are trying to do Wi-Fi stuff and USB stuff have to just like stick the chips onto each other. So that is actually a totally valid thing. You can either spend like a year reverse engineering the SDK, or you can just put another chip on there, but it doubles the cost. And it also doubles the
amount of hardware you just need.
Yeah, amount of hardware you need. So like, and the complexity, and there's more things that could fail. But that's absolutely a solution that a lot of other designers have gone with. We just haven't gone with it personally because it looks ugly. I mean, no shade on any of these other things, but frankly, like having two microcontrollers glommed together when one does like 80 or 90% of what you need is just silly to us. So yeah, that's not the way we personally design products, but it is totally doable. It does work, and multiple other people have done it. So you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
Christopher says everything is spying us on the internet. And yes, I agree with that sentiment. Everything from toilet cameras to your spouse. You can't trust anything.
What? Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, I will say that a lot of my message requests on Twitter, which have blown up after that last tweet kind of went viral, are about like, can you please hack my girlfriend's account? Or my girlfriend lost her account. Can you please hack into it for me and don't tell anyone else about it?
How can I do a man-in-the-middle attack where I redirect them to a login page of a fake router login to fetch the credentials? Typically, that's something like a, God, I forget what they're called. But there's like one technique that I was messing around with and trying to do like on a Wi-Fi pineapple where you could kick the person off the network, have them join a fake one, and then where that fake network like emulates the name of the real network, but with like a stronger signal strength. And then once they connect, use that in order to fish like their login credentials for like a page or something like that. Or host up like a, what do you call those portals? Like a captive web portal or something like that.
So one question is, Kody, what should I learn next after Evil Twin, MAC address, and beacon frame tracking? Okay, well, that's pretty good. If you're interested in Wi-Fi hacking stuff, all that is a pretty good fundamental start to understanding the way that Wi-Fi hacking works. I would say getting into some like 60 to 70% techniques that like are still really valuable in some cases, but might not work all the time, are definitely a good way to kind of round out your education when it comes to Wi-Fi hacking techniques. So that's going to be like the pixie dust attack, or other types of attacks like the half handshake attack. These are a little bit more exotic, or they might not work all the time, but when they do work, they're really effective. For example, the pixie dust attack is based on a tool called the WPS setup pin. Now, this is a convenience thing that's built into lots of different routers that allows you to connect to the router if you forget your password. But it's also totally dumb because you could just press the button on the back of the router, reset it, and be done with it. So I have no idea why this was implemented or why it's such a big deal to have it, but it is vulnerable in lots of cases. And if the math behind the encryption on it is bad, which lots of different routers will actually set the random seed that they use to encrypt everything as all zeros, or like the time that you initiate the connection. Like that's not good. Those are very predictable random seeds. So if the randomness is bad, then you can actually use that bad randomness to decrypt part of the information you need in order to get a handshake. So there's lots of different things you can do that will allow you to like get into a Wi-Fi network that somebody might not expect. And in the case of the pixie dust attack, when you do get that pin, you're able to just log into the router no matter what someone changes the password to. And it's very difficult to kick somebody out of your router once they break in this way. So, you know, I would say the pixie dust attack is really interesting. And then reading some of the research by Matthew Van Hoff, one of my favorite researchers in the Wi-Fi space, he's found ways of like weaponizing beacon frames to make it so that specific devices get hit with a beacon frame that basically disables their internet connection. And this is really interesting cutting edge research that I haven't actually seen implemented too much. That's something Alex and I are thinking of doing in the future. So if you're interested in some of these really bleeding edge attacks, or if you've learned a little bit about Wi-Fi hacking and you want to take the next step, these are all different areas I would suggest you explore.
Someone asks what our favorite Hack 5 items are, and why is it the pineapple?
I love it. By the way, apparently, if you give us donations on the stream, it goes to just some corporate money ball that we're totally unaffiliated with, like Discovery Networks. So if you feel like giving a big corporate money ball some money, you can feel free to do that. If you feel like supporting us, you can always buy a Wi-Fi Nugget. We thought about having like a Patreon or something at some point, but it just honestly feels weird to not give you something in exchange for your support. And we've really worked hard on making these to be awesome and get people excited about hacking. So yeah, if you want to support us, you can always buy a Nugget. But if you want to give money to the Discovery Network, you can also do that. You're totally fine. So what's our favorite Hack 5 product? Alex, you go first.
I gotta say the Bash Bunny, because it kind of stays true to like the original Hack 5 rubber ducky, but it adds on like enough useful features that I find I can deploy multiple payloads. It has like a mini Linux computer inside of it that I can use for like aliasing and some other stuff. I can use it for detecting the presence of Bluetooth devices and deploying payloads and stuff. I find it the most useful for what I'm doing, which is mostly automation. How about you?
Let's see. I really like. Someone also says, "Oh no, I bought a Wi-Fi pineapple to give it to the corpos." No. All your Hack 5 purchases are good. It's just if you donate to this stream in particular. Yeah. So for me, there's a lot of really good ones, but I know this is rather new. But the OMG cable, like I have to give that a shout out. Like it's so cool and so spooky, and I've seen it on the news so many times. When you talk about like making a splash with a product, like you want it to be on the news, and like. The USB rubber ducky was on, you know, Mr. Robot and a lot of other cool stuff. So it's definitely got that cultural relevance. But a more recent addition to this is the OMG cable, and we have one. I've barely gotten to use it. I'm really excited to because it's such a cool product, and there's so many things you can do with it. And also, MG has kind of been our mentor, like on getting our Wi-Fi Nugget up and ready for being its own Hack 5 product. So learning from his experience has been harrowing because it sounds like it's really hard to expand an idea and really scale it the way that he has. So I'm just really glad that the product exists at all and that we have one and that it looks so cool.
Oh my God. To clarify for people that are concerned, no, if you buy Hack 5 products, that still goes to Hack 5. Just donate. Just do not donate to the stream. That goes to somewhere else.
Hack 5, please answer. How can you use Termux to hack world like Watch Dogs? I want to be Termux mega hacker.
Wasn't Termux found vulnerable like a few weeks ago?
Yeah, but you can still use it to hack stuff.
Yeah.
So yes, you can hack some stuff like Watch Dogs with Termux if you have the requisite skill. Is it legal to do so? Almost definitely not. So just keep in mind that, like, you know, if you want to run around like Watch Dogs and change signals and stuff, like you might actually get in trouble.
Yep.
All right. So one question was thoughts on cybersecurity certifications. What do you think about this path? I'm really interested in pen testing. Which one is best? So a couple things to note is there are so many different roles in cybersecurity. So I'm really grateful that you pointed out that you want to go into like pen testing, because I have no certifications because I am a researcher. I focus on Wi-Fi. You know, I go to conferences and talk to people and learn things about stuff. And like, I don't like, it's not really in my wheelhouse to be doing pen testing on a day-to-day basis. Do I do free pen tests for businesses I work with all the times, mostly with their permission? Yes, I do. But I don't do that on a professional basis. So nobody really cares what my certifications are, because I show up, I do my work, and then like, there's never been any issue. And I have a long history of doing this. Alex is also, you know, a researcher and also a presenter. So his skills are much more towards, you know, presenting to all of you, a little bit of production and hardware stuff. Like for him, certifications might not make so much sense. And that's why neither of us have certifications. So I sometimes feel bad when people ask us questions about them, because personally, what have certifications done for us? Absolutely nothing. But we're not going down the same career path as you. You're looking for a pen testing job, which means you need to be competent and people need to have trusted you to do a job related to this before. That's really what people are looking for when they're looking to hire you. And if you don't have the second one, then certifications are a good way to kind of bridge that gap and be like, listen, I'm competent. I've been like following this thing. I have, you know, the seriousness, the money, and the time to plunk down on this extra education to assure that I do know what I'm doing. So it really does kind of soothe people into believing like, okay, at least this person is dedicated. They put time and energy into this. Now, is it necessary? No, it's totally not. If you are really passionate about it, if you're able to convey that in your interview, and if you have other skills that help you, you know, with all sorts of things you might not expect, then it can really be a benefit to whatever job you're getting into. Example, today we were purchasing a vehicle, and the gentleman provided me with a fake ID, and I was able to note that instantly because I used to work at a bar. So sometimes you go into a new job or into a new situation, and something that you thought was just some boring thing you did at your old job ends up being something they really want in that job. It could be reporting skills. Maybe you're going into pen testing from something where you have to do reports all day because you're bored of it, but you're like the best at reports. A lot of pen testers are terrible at reports and avoid them like the plague, and that could give you an advantage. So I would say framing yourself and framing the skills you already have to make it look like you're a great candidate might be worth more than a whole bunch of certificates if you're short on money. If you have the money and the time, certificates can work for you to let people know that, hey, I'm really dedicated to this and I have at least this amount of knowledge and I can talk in an educated fashion about these subjects. And then they'll probably maybe quiz you on those subjects. So at least you should be prepared to answer them. So a little bit of a complicated stance because, again, I don't use certifications myself. They haven't done much for me. But I've also taken applications from people that do have certifications. And I know the way that I look at them is of that, you know, that they're able to spend time and energy on making sure they know the fundamentals in this, even if they haven't had the requisite work experience I'm looking for. But frankly, if someone tells me that they're great at doing reports, you know, that they've been doing reports forever, they're very thorough, whatever, I would be like, well, this person sounds like all they need to do is learn our process. And then like, I can expect the rest is going to be done. Like that might be more of a convincing factor in a hire than, you know, some random certification that they might not have heard of if it's not a job that typically gets that certification. So just my take on that.
Jasmine says, really enjoying the content. Thank you.
Yeah,
I bought
thanks.
the Wi-Fi Nugget to add to my kit, but I'm having issues getting it to work with the IDE. It seems like a driver issue. Which Nugget do you have? Do you have the D1, the S2? I did a video on setting up the S2.
And the D1.
Did I? I don't know if I did.
Yeah.
I did a video on setting up the S2 with the Arduino IDE. So if you're using the D1 Wi-Fi Nugget, then you'll probably have to use a different board manager link. But we can drop a link in the chat to a setup guide that we have on our GitHub page, which is github.com/hackhattech, which is HAKCAT-tech /Wi-Fi Nugget. But we'll drop that in there.
So
and if not, you can email us if you have any questions.
Yeah. So one question we also have is, Kody, what do you do at Verona since you're not certified? I want a Wi-Fi hacking career, but I don't know how to get started. So, all right. So I'm technically on the marketing team. Isn't that funny? Which is really weird to think of. But since I'm a security researcher, my job is to spend probably 25% of my time developing new stuff. So that's like hacking bad guys, learning about new types of hacking, like, and just generally learning, growing, and trying to become a better hacker, like 25% of the time. About 50% of my time is taken up producing. So like making video content, making classes, making creative stuff. in order to get other people engaged with cybersecurity, to also highlight people that are doing really excellent stuff. And then I would say the rest of my time is probably spent on bureaucracy stuff, like running a business, getting equipment, managing a printer farm, like just all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. Managing our equipment is a whole job, like managing our people, managing our pay, like all this stuff, like honestly takes a lot. So I would say that the best thing about my job is I work with friends. The people at Varonis have been amazing to me, and the people on the marketing team are really supportive of just basically making sure we're putting out good, free, useful content that's not a commercial, that's something that people want. So they've been giving me tremendous freedom for the last, like, I think almost like 2.5 years now. And it's been the whole reason the show exists is that they want basically to be a goodwill gesture to the security community and be making sure that as a brand, they're putting out lots of great educational stuff. So if you're interested in teaching, you don't have to go into school necessarily, like, because I've considered teaching at like Pasadena City College because I had like a potential offer there for doing cybersecurity stuff. And while I was interested, I really like being able to work with my friends on freeform stuff that's funny and interesting and cool and makes other people who might not traditionally see themselves as cybersecurity people see a path into the industry. So back to your question, if you're specifically interested in Wi-Fi hacking, you're going to want to go into networking. You're going to want to look at IT stuff, because that was the most growth I did, was taking a routing and switching class and learning the fundamentals of the way the internet works and routing and switching and all that stuff. If you don't know that, you're going to have a really hard time learning about Wi-Fi because it's all based on IT stuff. So I would say learning IT, when I was in computer science, the teacher was a total snob about IT. They're like, even a janitor could do IT. Ha, 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 ha. And then everyone went back to like mashing keys and like knowing nothing about the command line or networking. And then when the time came for them to do their code in like a broader environment or to communicate with something outside of their own computer, they had no idea what they were doing. Whereas the networking students were designing like communications facilities for entire like hospitals and stuff, which were incredibly sophisticated and took lots of knowledge in like virtualized environments. It was really something to see how much you learn in IT. So I would say IT is definitely a way to learn a lot about networking, specifically the kind of stuff you'll need to know to be great at hacking Wi-Fi. Also, someone says, hi, Kody and Alex. Hi, Type Bangong. Hey. You have terrible timing, though, because I think we're just about to go. We are kind of towards the end of our time, and I have to say thank you to everybody who's been so active in the chat. I love these Hack5 live chats now because we get so many questions, and so many of them are so good, both about Hack5 products, about the videos we've done, and then also just about general cybersecurity career stuff. So hopefully we're going to have more guests on the show as we go on. Having Darren here was really great. Maybe we'll get some more Hack5 people as well on the show, because it would be great to be able to answer some more of your questions. One question is, are you guys prepared if the power grid gets hacked and goes down?
Damn right.
So yeah,
we always have a bug out plan.
We got a little place in Montana. We might just leave too if things get too hot. It's nice to be in the big city, but maybe not right now, So if there's like a big earthquake or like something else happens, then yeah, we got a plan. We're not going to stay in Los Angeles, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all the time we have today. Again, thank you so much for your questions. And if you didn't get your question answered, go ahead and leave it on this video. We'll go back and take a look at all the questions that have been left and make sure they get answered. So thank you to everyone who's with us live. You can check us out every Friday on the Hacking with Friends show on the SecurityFWD channel. You can find that at hackingwithfriends.com or check us out on SecurityFWD. That's SecurityFWD on YouTube. And again, a big shout out and thank you to Hack5 for letting us do this. I know they don't do a lot of live streams, but they should, right? This is so much fun. And getting to meet all of you makes this whole pandemic thing feel a little bit less lonely. So it's great to get to talk to fellow hackers and say hi at least once a week. So ask us your great questions. We will answer them next week. And until then, see you next time. Bye.